Hello, this is Nigel
This is Colin.
from the Encore Years. Now, many of you will know we've been interviewing retirees to learn and share their ideas and attitudes. We've uploaded a dozen interviews to YouTube so far, and these have been not only inspiring to both of us, but to many others as well. Today we have another interview, which promises to be equally interesting. Morning, brother Colin, old chap. How are you?
Doing splendidly, Night, and looking forward to this.
Good. Well, I've come up with an idea that we should interview each other, but
That is a really good idea. The truth behind it is that actually when we started this day one, we actually interviewed each other and we thought it was great. But then when your granddaughter Georgia saw it, she said, "Well, you two are so dull. You're normally more fun than this." So Nigel, we've got to make this one's got to be the fun one.
right, okay. And she said to me, Grandad, when we get together, we're quite the opposite of dull. Normally, we're quite sort of jokey and relaxed and what have you. So she made a very good point, I think. So great. I'm looking forward to this. Sorry, you're first, Colin, but that's how it goes. But there is one thing I should say, that you mustn't be so modest because you've got a lot to talk about. So try and be a bit more like me. Oh, questions.
All my life,
So,
I've been great too.
first of all, let's learn a bit about you. Can you tell us who you are, about your family, and your time as a salaryman?
Well, it really is. I love that word "salaryman." I know someone used it a bit a while ago for us, apparently a Japanese term. But I was mostly a salaryman, but about 15 years of having my own consultancy. So kind of done both sides. So as work, I had one of those, I was working in technology, one of those jobs that it's just so difficult to explain that I sort of stopped bothering to. And I just wished I was a teacher or a doctor or something, and you could explain in one word, but I couldn't. From work, it meant that I traveled a lot. And I was so lucky, my wife Annie traveled with me. And so we went on business all over Europe. We went to Russia and America every year. And then went to China a lot. We were in China twice a year. Chinese were just so hospitable, even though I was basically there trying to sell them something. But they were so friendly. It all kind of a little bit ground to a halt. With COVID, the traveling stopped. And then lovely Annie was developing dementia, which she started in her 50s. So she'd had it for a while. And then it got to the stage where I couldn't leave her on her own. So therefore, I stopped work a little bit early. So I stopped at 65.
And how about the rest of your family?
Okay, so we've got Harry, son Harry in the States. And I'm happy to talk about him later on, Harry and Teresa. They've just had a little baby Penelope. So going to talk about her a bit. And then Misha, my daughter, and Misha and Dan, and they have Annabelle and Joe. So yeah, part of my plan is lots of time with them.
Excellent. And so when you first retired, what were the first 6 months like?
Well, it was interesting because I had quite a long time to plan it, and I had sort of long handover period and so on. So we had quite a lot in place. We'd set up a business, Annie and I, called Go Marriage. We went to schools, secondary schools, talking about marriage and our marriage and so on. But it was difficult to keep it going, so that sort of fizzled out a bit. We were going to spend more time doing that. It sort of stopped. So we had a weekly routine. And on Mondays of every week, we did the Monopoly board, which meant going into London and going to a little Monopoly square, a different one every week. We started with Old Kent Road, which was absolute rubbish. So don't bother going there. So then we went to Whitechapel and all the other places, and we went most of the way around. And places we'd heard about all these places, but half of them we'd never been to. So that was very interesting. And then we wanted to do some sort of volunteering work and so on. So we had a sort of a daily plan.
Okay. But you've had a long history of voluntary work while you were working.
It's true, actually, from sort of school and scouts and stuff at church and things. Just, I don't know, just it's always done it. It's always seemed to work. And you always get more back than you give in because, things happen and you meet more people and so on.
But you ran huge events. particularly the murder mystery events in your church.
Well, that's true. Yeah, yeah. 13 or 14 years of that. And that was the most frightening thing because as a work, I did loads of presentations, but then you had the words in front of you. Actually having to memorize and stand up with no notes was just the scariest thing I did every year.
But now you've taken on yet another challenge.
Well, it's true. Repair Cafe. About 6 months into retirement, we met friends, Chris and Peter, and they said, we're in a village in Sussex, and we've set up lots of initiatives. One of them is Repair Cafe. And it's one of those things, as soon as they said it, I got it. And within 10 seconds, I thought, that's got to do that, got to do that. And I sort of got together with some pals and we sort of divvied out the jobs and basically set it up, the Twickenham Repair Café.
Well, I've been to your Repair Cafe only a couple of times, but it's an incredible success. It's the Twickenham Repair Cafe. You've got so many volunteers, you get so many visitors once a month. How many volunteers do you have and what sort of work do they do?
So we have 30 repairers. But the interesting thing is when we started, we decided we're going to make this work. We had 4. No, I think we had 6. We had 6. And 2 of them were press ganged in and they didn't last long. But 2 months later, when we opened the doors, the first one, we actually had 16. And it got a sort of groundswell of information and awareness. And the great thing was that from the 16, there wasn't a group. No one knew each other. So now we've got 30 people who 4 years ago didn't know any of the other ones. And as well as that, we've got 20 people who help. They're doing the welcoming, they're managing the jobs, they're running the cafe, they're making cakes, collecting money, and all that. So in all, we've got 50 people. And you could say from that, we've got probably 30 new friends.
Well, the atmosphere is incredible. Absolutely. It's really buzzing. So many visitors, so many repairs going on. And I would say you and your helpers, they're like a big family together. The way they work, it is just quite extraordinary and a great achievement.
Yeah, it's become a real focal point. I'm so glad. If I didn't have that, I'm not sure what I'd do. So first year we ran 11 events. This year, we're probably going to do well over 50 events.
And that's in other places as well.
Exactly. We go to schools, we go to community centres. There's an initiative that Richmond Council are setting up, so we help run that for them. So there's stuff happening every week, and I absolutely love it.
And if people are listening and watching us, how would they find the Repair Cafe and when?
Well, I'll put a link at the end.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good. And is this your greatest post-retirement achievement, Colin?
I think it is. It's a good question. And yes, it is, because it's involved so many people. And as you say, it's a lovely atmosphere. It's operate on a sort of a trust basis. We try to learn from other people, and we definitely don't get time up in bureaucracy and forms and logistics. We try and make things dead simple, absolute trust. And it's sort of chaotic because we'd have 100 people coming in the morning, really busy, really sort of chaos, but we kind of do a little bit sort of slightly organized chaos. It's very good fun.
Seemed to work very well when I was there. So what advice would you give? There's a friend of yours come along and say, hi, Colin, I'm going to retire next month. What advice would you give them?
Well, I suppose the volunteering side is just so important, because all those skills, we work for whatever it is, 40 years, and we build up all these fantastic skills. And then we stop paid work. What do we do? Perhaps play golf a bit or have coffee or meet people. But all that knowledge is just gone, just dead. So by using that, you're benefiting yourself enormously, but you're benefiting other people. And there are so many organizations who are desperate for people to help do something, do anything. So I think, volunteer, sort of get involved, and then just kind of have a go. Because when we started this, we had 100 questions, didn't know really what we were doing. But if you've got a sort of a bit of an idea, just go with it and just fine tune as you go along. Sort of get involved in other things.
And I know, like many granddads, you allow plenty of time for family and grandchildren and that sort of thing. And you've got
Yeah,
your new baby.
new baby. And so one of these interviews we did, I don't know if you remember now, it's a couple of weeks ago, and this inspiring guy, and he said, and I'm going to
Michael.
copy him, Michael, you know what I mean? So Michael said, got grandchildren, and he said, I'm going to read them stories. That's what I'm going to do, bedtime stories. And I thought, well, that's good. Everyone does that. But he said, I'm actually going to make them into a podcast. Therefore, if the mum and dad are driving the car, they can say, do you want to listen to music or do you want to listen to a granddad story time? And I'm going to, I haven't told him yet, but I'm going to exactly copy that for little Penelope and do them nice storybook times because they're living in the US. So we're going to see them a lot, but not every day. That's something I'm definitely going to get involved in.
That is just, when we both heard that, we were knocked out with the clever idea. So what's next, Colin?
Well, again, Repair Café, we're helping Richmond Council, who have set up a permanent repair cafe. And we're basically telling them how to do it because I kind of don't know. So helping them sort of set it up, helping them, with volunteers and things. So that's good.
Great.
I think succession planning is very important. So the sort of thing we've set up is Google Drive because everything was on my laptop. I never used it before, but someone has set up Google Drive, and so we can share documents and all that sort of thing. So that's, again, it's using a bit of technology. I love doing these interviews because every one I learn at least one thing, not normally a whole load.
Me too.
And I know our plan is we want to do 50 of these. Nigel, we could do 50 by the end of the year. And one thing I should have said earlier on the bottom right of the screen, there's a subscribe button. Please click subscribe. And then each time we do one of these, you'll get a little notification. So yeah, it's building up these interviews and then learning how to edit and all that sort of thing. So no, I find that's great. And it's one of those things. I had my hair cut yesterday and I said to my barber, you know lots of people. And I briefly told him what we were doing. Took 10 seconds. He got his phone out. He got YouTube. He said, I can see you there. And I said, think of the people you've got who retire. And he said, I'll definitely pass this on. So we want to talk to the barber and we want to talk to lots of people to get more and more names to get to our 50 by Christmas. That's the plan.
That's great. Just one more question, really. And how do they find us on YouTube?
Well, it's very easy search. You've just search Encore Years Retirement. And then our wonderful faces come up and people click it and
Our ugly mugs.
ugly mugs come up. They click onto something else probably, but I don't know. And then we'll build up, we'll do on other things as well.
Colin, thank you for being so open and I wouldn't say immodest, but, telling us things as they are. And thanks for your interview. I think it's been fantastic. And I think you are a very good example to others of how to live your later years after work.
Right.
Thank you very much for that.
Thanks so much, Nigel. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks. Well, Colin, this has been fabulous, as I knew it would be. So let's try and summarize it. You start.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Nigel. I've really enjoyed it. I suppose my start point is Annie and Annie's dementia. She'd started in her 50s, so it's been with us for almost 15 years in one way or another. But I know a lot of the people we've interviewed are in a similar boat as me. They're looking after something, they're caring and so on. So just to highlight that.
I think the next point is that you've had a very long history, at least 20, 30 years, of community volunteering. So this is carried on after retirement as well. So very impressive projects you've taken on in the past.
Yeah, thanks. And I think what I've learned from them, and particularly more recently, is you try something. If it doesn't work, just move on. Don't get tied up and don't get sort of stressed by it. Just do something else, do something different.
Yes, quite right. And your current achievement, after retirement achievement, the Repair Café, has been extraordinary. And to hear that you have 50 volunteers who turn up is really impressive.
Right. Yeah, and I think from another highlight for me is grandchildren. And I know it's something you've said in the past that once you've stopped work, you have got more time. So it's very much a focus for me on 3 grandchildren, more time and more creative stuff with them.
Absolutely. And also, you and I have tried something new. That's the Encore years. And both were well into it after a couple of months with a dozen or so interviewees. And I think this has given huge inspiration to many, many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've never spent so much time with you, Nige. It's delightful.
At least I recognize you now.
Yes, yeah. So are we all done?
We're all done. Thank you, Cole. Great
Let's
interview.
thank you, Nige. And so it's encore and out.
Encore.